What's going on, everyone? Coach Damien here, the Shift Method Personal Training. Hope everyone is having a great day. Got an awesome video. We're going over one of my favorite exercises, and that's going to be the barbell overhead press. As always with these videos, we're gonna go over kind of the ins and outs of how to do it, what does it look like for setup, major muscles worked, and of course, as always, we're gonna go over some form correction for yourself or if you're working with a client. So let's get right into it. So the primary muscle worked in the overhead press is of course going to be that large triangular muscle that you got on the side of your arm there. That is your deltoid muscle, responsible for abducting the arms away from your body, and that is the primary motion we go into with the overhead press. But of course you're gonna have, as always, some accessory muscles that are gonna help you with the lift, things like your pectoralis major, primarily that upper portion, that clavicular head, as well as your triceps to help you extend your elbow, your upper trapezius, right? Kind of those big muscles on the top of your neck to help you get in that overhead position. And of course, we got some use of the serratus anterior, that kind of jagged muscle that you have on your ribs because it helps you move your shoulder blade into position. As always, while this is an upper body exercise, we still have some isometric work with our deep core, like our transverse abdominis, as well as using our glutes and our quads to help keep our body upright, keep our legs extended, and produce force throughout the movement. So now we're gonna go over the setup for the overhead press. So in terms of the rack, you're gonna set it up, in my opinion, the exact same way you would set up your barbell back squat. If you watch my other video on that, it's gonna be right at about collarbone height or kind of towards the top of your chest because the rack position is almost at a similar height. So once you go ahead and get your bar set up, you can literally walk up to it and make sure that it gets to chest height. The next thing you gotta focus on is your hand placement. A good place to start is what I tell people is start with your elbows being in line with your wrists. From a biomechanics standpoint, this limits what's called moment arms, meaning the distance between where you're producing force and where you're actually grabbing onto an object, right? So if you think, if I go a really wide or really narrow grip, that might not be the best way to produce force. But of course, as always, as you start playing with the grip, it's gonna vary depending on your anatomy and your personal preference. But elbows in line with wrists is always a great place to start. So once you have that down, all you're then going to do is get yourself close to the bar, unrack it, take a couple steps out of the rack, and then you're gonna go ahead and initiate the lift. Okay, so we got our setup down. Now let's talk about actually doing the lift. So you're gonna take a nice big breath in, right? Get your core nice and tight, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the stomach, and then you are going to drive the bar directly overhead. Remember that because you're starting below your chin, you might have to lean back just a little bit, press directly overhead so that your arms are right above you, the barbell is right over your head, and then control it all the way back down to the starting position. Some nuances with the overhead press. We've always talked about this a few times, the concept of scapular retraction versus scapular freedom. So last time we talked about the bench press, I told you it's a good cue to keep the shoulders retracted and down. For the overhead press, kind of like the pull-up, we're gonna wanna have that scapular freedom. If I keep my shoulders back and down, it's gonna be very awkward to extend my arms overhead, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. So you actually wanna have your shoulder blades relaxed because in order to get overhead, your shoulder blades have to elevate, they gotta abduct, and they have to upwardly rotate to help your arms get into that overhead position. So remember, don't retract your shoulder blades, keep them nice and relaxed. Okay, so we got down the general form. Now let's go over some basic or common mistakes that I see while performing this lift. The first one is just people don't understand the concept of getting the bar directly overhead. So when you are doing an overhead press, you aren't doing an incline bench press. And what I mean by that is you're not pushing the bar forward. It is called an overhead press because you are pressing over your head, right? So even though you're starting kind of in front of your body at the beginning of the lift, when you finish, the bar should be directly over the middle of your head, basically cutting your body into front and back side, right? So that's the first mistake. And the way that you can correct that, for some people it's just telling them like, hey, you want to press it overhead and showing them what that looks like. For other people, it might be kind of a mobility or a strength issue, and this should clean up over time as you gradually improve the range of motion. The next common mistake that I see is, again, like a lot of these big compound lifts, is excessive rounding or flexing of the spine. Again, not inherently dangerous in of itself, but we want to make sure that the deltoids and the other accessory muscles are the main muscles doing the lift, as opposed to just having too much movement in the system, right? For this one, what I usually tell people is bracing their stomach and bracing their glutes, and that usually cleans things up pretty well. Last but not least, and this is a very, very common one that I see with people, whether it's barbell or dumbbell overhead press, is having the elbows too flared out. Oftentimes I see people thinking that in overhead press, you have to have your elbows kind of at this 90-degree bend, and then you're pressing here. That's not the case actually. What ends up happening is you start kind of with your elbows tucked, almost like a close grip bench or a close grip push-up, and as you press, you let the arms naturally extend out and come back in. That's gonna be the natural rhythm of the shoulder blade, like I said, going to elevation, abduction, and upward rotation. So you're actually going to just let yourself naturally extend instead of forcing it into external rotation there. And that's it. I want to thank all of you so much for tuning into this video. Please be sure to like, comment, share, or subscribe if you found it helpful. And as always, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at _shift_method. Of course, theshiftmethod.org, where you can find merch, as well as reach out to me if you have any questions with coaching. And as always, I'm coming to you from Johnny O's Gymnasium in beautiful sunny South Florida. Look forward to seeing y'all next time.